All right, so thank you.
Yeah, we're good to go.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Hold on.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Narayana namaskritya narachaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamadhirayat nashtaprayeshva bhadresu nityam bhagavatam sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. So today we are reading from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 1, Chapter 17, entitled Punishment and Reward of Kali. And today we are treating verses 10 and 11. Isn't it?
All right. Yes, 10 and 11, yes.
Yeah, 10 and 11. Which it says, Yasya rastre praja sarvas trasyante sadhvi asadubhir tasya matasya nashanti kriti ayurbago gantihi isarajñam paro dharma hi artanam arti nigraha atainam vadishyami bhuta druham asatamam yasya rastre praja sarvas trasyante sadhvi asadubhir tasya matasya nashanti kriti ayurbago gatihi isarajñam paro dharma hi artanam arti nigraha ata inam vadisyami buddha druham asatamam yasya rastre praja sarvas trasyante sadhvi asadubhir tasya matasya nashanti kriti ayurbago gatihi isarajñam paro dharma hi artanam ati nigraha atainam vadisyami bhuta druham asatamam. Word for word translation. Yasya, one whose rastre in the state, praja, living beings, sarva, one and all, transcente, are terrified, sadhvi, O chaste one, asadubir, by the miscreants, tasya, his matasya, of the illusion, nashanti, vanishes, kriti, fame, ayur, duration of life, bhaga, fortune, gatir, good rebirth, esa, these are, ragnam, of the kings, para, superior, dharmaha, occupation, he, certainly, artanam, of the sufferers, arti, sufferings, nigraha, subduing, arta, therefore, enam, this man, vadishyami, I shall kill, bhuta druham, revolter against other living beings, asatamam, the most wretched. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Oh, chase one. The king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Purport. When there is one disturbance caused by wild animals in a village or town, the police or others take action to kill them. Similarly, it is the duty of the government to kill at once all bad social elements, such as thieves, dacoits, and murderers. The same punishment is also due to animal killers because the animals of the state are also the praja. Praja means one who has taken birth in the state, and this includes both men and animals. Any living being who takes birth in a state has the primary right to live under the protection of the king. The jungle animals are also subject to the king, and they also have a right to live. So what to speak of domestic animals like the cows and bulls? Any living being, if he terrifies other living beings, is a most wretched subject, and the king should at once kill such a disturbing element. As the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances, similarly, any man who unnecessarily kills or terrifies the jungle animals or other animals must be punished at once. By the law of the Supreme Lord, all living beings, in whatever shape they may be, are the sons of the Lord, and no one has any right to kill another animal unless it is so ordered by the courts of natural law. The tiger can kill a lower animal for his subsistence, but a man cannot kill an animal for his subsistence. That is the law of God, who has created a law that a living being subsists by eating another living being. Thus, the vegetarians are also living by eating other living beings. Therefore, the law is that one should live only by eating specific living beings as ordained by the law of God. The Upanishad directs that one should live by the direction of the Lord and not at one's sweet will. A man can subsist on varieties of grains, fruits, and milk ordained by God, and there is no need of animal food, save and except in particular cases. The illusion king or executive head, even though sometimes advertised as a great philosopher and a learned scholar, will allow slaughterhouses in the state without knowing that torturing poor animals clears the way to hell for such foolish kings or executive heads. The executive head must always be alert to the safety of the prajas, both man and animal, and inquire whether a particular living being is harassed at any place by another living being. The harassing living being must at once be caught and put to death, as shown by Parikshit Maharaj. The people's government or government by the people should not allow killing of innocent animals by the sweet will of foolish government men. They must know the courts of God, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Maharaj Pariksit quotes here that according to the courts of God, the irresponsible king or state executive jeopardizes his good name, duration of life, power, and strength. Ultimately, his progressive march towards a better life and salvation after death. Such foolish men do not even believe in the existence of a next life. While commenting on this particular verse, we have in our presence the statement of a great modern politician who has recently died and left his will, which discloses his poor fund of knowledge of the courts of God mentioned by Maharaj Pariksit. The politician was so ignorant of the courts of God that he writes, "I do not believe in any ceremonies, and to submit to them even as a matter of form would be hypocrisy and an attempt to delude ourselves and others. I have no religious sentiment in the matter." Contrasting these statements of a great politician in the modern age with those of Maharaj Pariksit, we find a vast difference. Maharaj Pariksit was pious according to the scriptural codes, whereas the modern politician goes by his personal belief and sentiments. Any great man of the material world is, after all, a conditioned soul. He is bound by his hands and feet by the ropes of material nature, and still the foolish conditioned soul thinks of himself as free to act by his whimsical sentiments. The conclusion is that people in the time of Maharaj Pariksit were happy, and the animals were given proper protection because the executive head was not whimsical or ignorant of God's laws. Foolish, faithless creatures try to avoid the existence of the Lord and proclaim themselves secular at the cost of valuable human life. The human life is especially meant for knowing the science of God, but foolish creatures, especially in this age of Kali, instead of knowing God scientifically, make propaganda against religious beliefs as well as the existence of God, even though they are always bound by the laws of God, by the symptoms of birth, death, old age, and disease. Om Gyana Timiridasya Gyanan Gyanashalakaya Chaksuramalitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yukta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunastam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakam Vitamscha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swaminiti Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asritatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namini Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvase Sasuyavadi Pasacha Ade Satarini Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya Ivacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namini Gauratize Namaha Nityanando Vatutendur Vasuda Pranavalabaha Janavir Jivita Patir Krishna Prema Prabhu Prema Vati Sutasrimam Sachirananda Purvajaha Vavom Mata Jagat Rakta Rakta Gora Kele Varaha Advitam Harinadvita Racharyam Bhakti Shamshanat Bhaktavataram Itam Sham Arveta Acharya Ashraye Panchatattvamakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakti Shaktikam Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajagraye Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagarhitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopita Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surato Pango Mama Madir Gatima Sarvaswa Patam Bhujo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Radhagara Simhastanastao Srila Govinda Devo Prishyalibi Sevya Mano Smarami Srimamra Sarasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karasan Venuswanai Gopi Gopinata Sri Estunaha Taptakan Chana Gourangi Radhe Bindavanishwari Mrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Devi Krishnamai Prokta Radhika Paradevata Sarvam Lakshmi Mai Sarvam Kanti Samohini Paraha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Translation again. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum lagaye te grim yat karipatama hanvande Shri Guru Dina Taranam Paramanam Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram Akanda Mandala Karam Vyapta Yina Chara Charam Tatpadam Dashitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So everyone is welcome to this class, SRIMAD Bhagavatam class. And before we proceed to say something for the benefit for our spiritual progress and maybe for the benefit of the audience, we seek the blessings of all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are assembled on this platform, and especially my superiors, so that with their blessings, we can represent Srila Vyasadeva, the author of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam. So this section of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam is mainly discussing administration, the duties of the king, the role of the leader, and how the leader's duty is to make sure that everyone under his protection, under his jurisdiction, is protected. In the second canto of the SRIMAD Bhagavatam, it is mentioned, Prajapati Dharma Patir Ekada Niyanam Yamam Badram Prajanam Avincham Atishtat Swaratan Karmaya. The once upon a time, the forefather of all living entities and the father of religious principles, Lord Brahma, situated himself in acts of penance, desiring the self-interest for the welfare of all living entities. Brahma is the head of this universe, is a leader. All other beings take our birth from Brahma. And therefore, Brahma is the leader of this universe. And we see that anytime there is some calamity, anytime there is some trouble, Bhumi Mata, Mother Earth, will go to Brahma and report the happenings on this planet. And Brahma will lead the demigods to the milk ocean and relay the disturbances to Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. And Kshirodakashayi Vishnu will respond by giving directions what should be done. So Brahma is the greatest welfare personality of the universe. He's always thinking about the welfare of all living entities. So it is said that even Brahma on his planet, he is meditating and performing austerities for the welfare of all the living entities in the universe. As the leader of the universe, Brahma is performing austerity for the benefit of all living entities in the universe. Param Shushranam Mahim Syat Praja Rakshaya Nripa Bhagavan Ste Praja Bratur Hristikeso Nutushantihi. O king, if you can give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service for me. When the Supreme Lord sees you to be a good protector of the conditioned souls, certainly the master of the senses will be very pleased with you. That's Brahma speaking in the 3rd canto of the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. In fact, when there was no ruler, after King Uttanapad had retired to the kingdom, had retired his kingdom, and gave the kingdom to his son, Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj ruled for some time, for 36,000 years. And Dhruva Maharaj also retired. At some stage, there was nobody to rule the kingdom. So, Swayambhuva Manu went to Priyavrata. Priyavrata is actually the senior son of Swayambhuva Manu, but he took sannyas and went to the Gandhana Mandana mountains to perform austerities. And so Uttanapad, the junior brother, had to become the king. And Uttanapad is the father of Dhruva Maharaj. So after Dhruva Maharaj attained perfection and came back home with so much glory, so much fame, so much joy, Uttanapad could not wait even to get Dhruva Maharaj married. He was so impatient to go to the forest and experience what Dhruva Maharaj has experienced. So he left home without even getting his son married. And Dhruva Maharaj, as a young prince, even unmarried, was put on the throne. But after Dhruva Maharaj had managed the empire for 36,000 years, according to the Lord's benediction, he retired. And after that, there was no ruler. So Swayambhuva Manu had to go to Gandhana Mandana mountain to talk to Priyavrata to come back and take up the job of management. And Priyavrata was reluctant because he was so advanced in spiritual consciousness. He was so advanced in devotional service. So he didn't see how he was going to combine administration with his renunciation. So he was reluctant. And so when Brahma noticed that Priyavrata was reluctant to take up management because of his advanced consciousness, of his elevated spiritual awareness, Brahma came with his associates, the 9 sages, including Narada Muni, because Priyavrata is a disciple of Narada Muni. When Brahma came, Narada Muni was already teaching Priyavrata some secrets of spiritual advancement. And Brahma arrived. And Brahma told Priyavrata, this is one of the statements. He said, you must perform your duty as a king. And if you perform your duty very nicely, protecting everyone in your state, then Supreme Lord will be pleased with you. O king, if you can give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service for me. And when the Supreme Lord sees you to be a good protector of the conditioned souls, certainly the master of the senses will be very pleased with you. So when Priyavrata heard this from Brahma, he accepted to take up the administration. And Brahma told him, if you simply fix your mind at the lotus feet of Mukunda, if you fix your mind at the lotus feet of Krishna, while doing your service, Maya will not defeat you. You will not be contaminated by the material environment. And so, on that note, Priyavrata accepted to rule the kingdom. And it is said that Priyavrata ruled actually ruled the whole universe so nicely, to a point Priyavrata was thinking that the sun is not performing enough service, because the sun is supposed to be circumambulating Mount Meru. So when the sun is on the northern side of Mount Meru, those who are on the southern side are in darkness. And when the sun is on the southern side of Mount Meru, those who are on the northern side of Mount Meru are also in darkness. So Priyavrata was thinking, what kind of service is this Surya Dev performing? Why can't he provide light throughout? So what did Priyavrata do? He created a chariot, a huge chariot that was driven by 6,000 horses. And Priyavrata followed the sun with this, and this chariot was golden. It was a golden chariot that has the effulgence like the sun. In fact, it is said that it has certain qualities or specialities the sun does not have. Because it is said that when there is summer, normally the sun heat is still the same. And so people sweat during summer. The sun does not decrease its light and heat because of the season. The same amount of heat and light the sun is emitting every time. But in the case of Priyavrata's chariot, he could regulate the heat accordingly. When it is summertime, Priyavrata's chariot will reduce or emit less heat so that people don't sweat. And when it is wintertime, Priyavrata's chariot would increase its heat so that people don't suffer from cold. So because of his wonderful administration of the universe, the Lord gave Priyavrata a very long life. It is said he ruled the universe for 11 Adbuddhas. And one Adbuddha is 100 million years. One Adbuddha is 100 million years. And Priyavrata, he ruled the universe for 11 Adbuddhas. That means 100 million times 11. because of his wonderful management of the universe. So Krishna was so pleased with him. Brahma was pleased with him. So he was empowered to rule the universe. Similarly, we see that Yudhishthira Maharaj, it is said, Naino Raja Praja Bharatur, Dharma Yude Vado Drisham, Iti me tu Bodaya, Kalpate Shashanam Vachaha. There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. Of course, Yudhishthira Maharaj, after the war, after the battle of Kurukshetra, he was lamenting that because he had to attain to the throne of Hastinapur, because of him, all the killing was done. So he was feeling despondent, he was feeling unhappy that because of him, 630 million people were killed. But actually, it was not because of Yudhishthira Maharaj. Krishna wanted to eliminate all the demons. He wanted to reduce the burden of the world. And so Krishna effected that destruction. But Yudhishthira, being a very humble soul, being an exemplary king, he was lamenting that he is responsible for the death of all these souls. But the scripture says, there is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause. He does the killing for the maintenance of the citizens. Emperor Yudhishthira administered so generously to everyone during his reign. He was exactly like a father to everyone. He had no personal ambition and was free from all sorts of sense gratification because of his continuous service unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. So we see that Priyavrata Maharaj, because he was meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna, of Mukunda, he was such a beautiful king, a wonderful king. Now, it is also mentioned here that because Yudhishthira Maharaj had no personal ambition, he simply did it as a matter of course, a service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He also did such a beautiful administration. So, there are many kings, even King Sibi. King Sibi is described to be an ideal king. King Sibi was ready to give his own flesh for the protection of a pigeon. A hawk had chased the pigeon for food, and the pigeon took shelter of Sibi Maharaj. And Sibi Maharaj was prepared to give his own flesh to the size of the pigeon for the satisfaction of the hawk. So it is said that Sibi Maharaj was such a pious king. He was such an exalted king that on his account, King Yayati entered the kingdom, the heavenly kingdom. On his account, the residents of heaven, they will receive King Yayati in a very wonderful way because he came to the heavenly planet with Sibi Maharaj. So therefore, when a king manages the state manages the citizens very nicely, it is not only pleasing to the citizens, but it is also pleasing to the devas, and is also pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when the devas are pleased and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased, then it says the king's good name, duration of life, and his next destination will be very wonderful. But if the king does not protect the citizens, if the king does not do his duty, if the king is a bad king, then all of these things are going to decrease. His name, his fame, his duration of life, and all kinds of things concerning the king will be decreased. So it is important to understand why giving protection to all living entities is important, because every living entity is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mama Ivamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Krishna says, every living entity is eternally part and parcel of me. So when one living entity is suffering, the Supreme Father is not pleased. And when one living entity is happy, then the Supreme Father is pleased. That is why we see that when Krishna came to speak Bhagavad Gita, he spoke to the sun god. In the first chapter of the first verse of the 4th chapter, Krishna mentions that he first spoke this knowledge to the sun god, because the sun god is a ruler. The sun god is a king. The sun god is an administrator. So why is Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita to him? Imam Vishashato, Imam Vivashato Yogam, Proktavam Aham Avyayam, Vivashan Manavi Prahar Manur Ishraku Bravit. I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivashan. And we see that when Krishna came also 5,000 years ago, he's speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Why is Krishna speaking this transcendental science to the sun god and to Arjuna? And I heard one lecture, Prabhupada said that just as Krishna was able to go to the sun planet to speak Bhagavad Gita, he might have also gone to other planets to speak the same science. He might have gone to the moon planet. He might have gone to other planets to speak the same science to the leaders of those planets. Because Krishna wants the leaders of society to understand the principles of religion and rule the people, protect the people based on religious principles. Therefore, Krishna, he gave this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita not to even brahmanas, not to sannyasis, but to politicians, to administrators, the Kshatriyas, because it is their duty to rule. And so, administration is a necessary part of this universe. So long as the universe exists, there must be administration. Things have to be organized, things have to be supervised for the benefit of all living entities, and especially in the human society. The human society, the human form of life is most important because in this form, one can actually serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Labdwa sudruladam idam bahu sambhavante. After many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life. Although temporary, it affords one the opportunity for the highest perfection. Therefore, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for spiritual perfection. And so it is the duty of the kings, of the administrators, to make sure that religious principles are followed. In fact, Srila Prabhupada mentions that Krishna came into this world for the purpose of re-establishing religious principles. Dharma glanir. When religious principles are degraded, the Lord comes. And when he comes, he makes sure that whatever is necessary to keep religious principles, to bring religious principles back, he does that. So it's the duty of the administrators, it's the duty of the rulers to make sure that every citizen is law-abiding, and not only law-abiding, that every citizen is inclined to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what will please the Supreme Lord very much. So in other words, even in our administration, it should be seen as service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see that Krishna has so many devotees who are administrators, who are kings. Many devotees are kings, and Krishna gave them the power to administer. Prithu Maharaj is said to be the Palana, the incarnation of administration. When Prithu Maharaj appeared in this world, there was a lot of problems. King Vena, his father, was such a very sinful king. He had created so much problem. And to the degree that Mother Earth had withdrawn the grains, withdrawn the herbs, and had withdrawn everything from the earth. And so when Prithu Maharaj took over the administration, because the living entities were hungry, the Praja were without food, without the necessary ingredients for existence. They all came before Prithu Maharaj, and they launched their complaint. And as soon as Prithu Maharaj heard this, he picked up his bow and arrow and was ready to kill Mother Earth, who had taken the form of a cow. And if I said that Prithu Maharaj was so angry, he was so infuriated at Mother Earth for depriving the Praja of the basic necessities of life. And Mother Earth has to now fall on her knees and beg Prithu Maharaj to spare her life. And Prithu Maharaj said, if you would provide the needs of the citizens, if you will restore things, I will spare you. But if you don't, I will use my bow and arrow to scatter you into pieces. And I, as a Supreme Lord, I can maintain this universe without you. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead had put administration in place. He is the source of the Varna system, Varna Ashrama system for the management of the universe. Chartu Mayam Srishtam, Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, I am the source of the four Varnas, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Sudras. Why does Krishna manifest these classes? Because each and every one has to play a role. The Brahmanas will guide by providing knowledge. The Kshatriyas will protect by making sure that miscreants are removed from the state. There's law and order. The Vaishyas will provide the economic base, and then the Sudras would render service. So it is the Lord's arrangement for the management of the universe, for the protection and administration of the universe. And therefore, when it is done according to the Lord's plan, then the law is satisfied. So we should not see administration as material. Anything that is applied in Krishna's service, anything that is utilized in Krishna's service, it's called Yukta Vairagya. It leads to liberation. Anything that is performed for Krishna's service leads to devotional service. It leads to perfection. It leads to freedom from this material world. And we have seen that many, many kings who administered the universe, administered this planet according to the rules of the Lord. They were supported by the Supreme Lord, and they returned home at the end of their lives in this world. So, to conclude, the purpose of administration is actually instituted. Administration is instituted by the Lord for the purpose of protecting the praja, for the purpose of making sure everyone is comfortable. And as a result of that, everyone can take to the process of Krishna consciousness. When everyone is nicely protected, when everything is provided, then the next thing is that everyone can utilize the human form of life in Krishna consciousness and achieve that rare goal of going back home, back to Godhead. And that is why administration is very important. And we can see that even from the Lord's platform, every administration is there. Mahavishnu provides the Mahatattva. Mahavishnu glances at Pradhana, and Mahatattva comes out of it. And then with his glance, he energizes the modes, he activates the modes. With his glance, he impregnates Mahatattva with the living entities. Then the next stage is Garbhotakashaya Vishnu. He is responsible for entering the universal shell and then creating the causal ocean or the Garbha ocean, and then bringing forth Brahma from his navel. And Brahma now becomes the engineer of the universe. And then again, the Lord expands himself as Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. He is within this universe, overseeing the progress of this universe. That if there is any problem, Brahma will take the demigods and they will go to report. So we can see that even the Lord himself, he institutes administration. The Lord himself, he structures the universe, and things are happening according to that plan. So therefore, it is a duty of the leaders to ensure that everyone is protected, everyone is taken care of, and everyone feels the energy of the Supreme Lord. And this way, everyone can be encouraged to take to the path of bhakti, which is serving the Supreme Lord and going back home, back to Godhead. That is the ultimate end of everything else in this material world. At the end of the day, the living entity should be able to return to the spiritual world. That is the purpose of all this administration. Actually, it is said that the material creation was effected by the Lord for the purpose of allowing the living entities to experience material world, see the difficulty in the material world, and return to the spiritual world. So the material world is created for the rectification of the living entity. And that is part of the Lord's administration. So thank you very much. If there are any comments or questions, they're welcome. I've been speaking for the last 3 hours, and I don't think I can continue more than this. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. His Grace, Srimad VANACARI Prabhu, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Of course, your classes are always enticing, so much nectarian. So I believe devotees have questions. And if anyone has a question, please, you may kindly indicate that by using the hand emoji. His Grace Srimad VANACARI also indicated he's been speaking for so long, so I will suggest that we do not keep him here for too long, more than necessary. So whoever has a question, please, you may indicate that by using the hand emoji, and you'll be asked to unmute. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I have a question on a statement you ended on.
Okay.
That it is the responsibility of the administrator to make sure that the citizens are provided with everything they need so they can live comfortably. When the people live comfortably, then they can concentrate their mind, everything on developing their spiritual life.
Yeah.
Because it's said in the Bible also, where Solomon said, my Lord, if I become too poor, people will make mockery of me. I may not even have the ability to think of you. I'm thinking of my daily bread. I can't think of serving you. But we see in this material world that on this earth planet, that the devas are even jealous of us because we have a better opportunity to serve Krishna than them, because they have so much pleasures. And due to these pleasures, they oftentimes forget about God. So my question is, how do we contrast being poor and then having everything accessible to us, and at the same time, all those accessibility to whatever we need derail us from surrendering and serving God, Krishna?
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a fact that when one is so impoverished, it becomes difficult to render service. On the contrary, also, if one becomes too opulent, there are also challenges. So both extreme cases do not augur well for devotional service. Yeah, somebody who is too poor cannot even provide his daily bread. If you go to talk to him about God, he's so absorbed in his daily needs that he doesn't see the importance of serving God. So at least the basic needs should be there. Of course, if a devotee decides to renounce the world, somebody on a very high level of spirituality or bhakti, he can live a very poor life, and it doesn't really bother him because he has voluntarily given up material life. And not only that, he's experiencing a higher level of transcendence, bliss, so he doesn't care about whatever is happening down here. Like the case of Kolevecha, Sridhar Kolevecha. It is said that Sridhar Kolevecha was so poor in the vicinity of Mayapur, he was considered the poorest. His cup for drinking water was broken. And he was depending on banana leaves. He was selling banana leaves to sustain himself. And even from that banana leaf, he still has to give a percentage for the worship of Ganga. His poverty was so terrible. But SRIVAS Kolavecha would chant very loudly at night. And the residents of Mayapur would be making a mockery of him. They would say, see this guy, he's a hunger. He's so hungry, he can't sleep. That's why he's disturbing us like this. But actually, SRIVAS Kolavecha, Sridhar Kolavecha was in ecstasy. He was relishing Krishna consciousness at the highest level. And one day, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went there to demonstrate his love for Sridhar Kolavecha. He entered Sridhar Kolavecha's house and picked up that broken pot and started drinking from it. And Sridhar Kolavecha was very upset. He said, my dear Lord, what is this? How can you drink from this broken pot? It is not meant for you. It is meant for us low people. And Lord Chaitanya did not mind. He drank from it. And then he asked SRIVAS Kolavecha, now ask me for a benediction. Anything you want, just ask me, I will give you. But he didn't ask for anything. He said, my dear Lord, all that I want from you is, I want to be a better devotee. I want to chant the names of Krishna with ecstasy. I want perfection. I want to go back home, back to Godhead. So there are some devotees, because of their level of renunciation, detachment, they may live in abject poverty, but that poverty, they're experiencing a higher dimension of pleasure, that externally they may seem very poor, but actually they're the richest. But because of that, they sometimes forget their position as representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, it is said that the demigods, they are actually praying to take birth on this Bhuloka, in this middle planetary system, in order to become Krishna conscious. In fact, somewhere Srila Prabhupada mentioned that demigods are queuing to take birth in the Hare Krishna movement in order to practice Krishna consciousness. So it is not good to be too poor. It is also good to be too rich. Because if you are too poor, you may be struggling for food, struggling for basic needs, and then one may give up the process of bhakti. Because if you are too poor, that you cannot even eat, then it becomes very difficult to even practice bhakti. And if you are also too rich, you may be carried away by the wealth, and it also becomes difficult for bhakti. So one should always tread the middle line. That is the advice of the scripture. One should always tread the middle line. You shouldn't be too poor, you shouldn't be too rich, but at least your basic needs should be there so that you don't become so impoverished that basic needs are not available. So it is the duty of the administrators to make sure that every citizen has the basic needs of life so that they can practice Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. So moderation is the key.
Yeah, moderation is the key.
Okay, thank you. Saki Devi, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, all glories to Guru and Garanga. Hare Krishna, Srivas Prabhu. I told my mom, Mother Kamagiri, you were giving class, and she said she wanted to send her love to you and your lovely wife, Mother Ruchira.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted
to her also. It's a long time we've seen her. We pray that she's doing well.
Yes, she's doing well. Thank you.
Great.
My question was basically about kind of what you said about Sridhar Kolavecha. It was about Sudama Vipra, like when he was here on the planet, his government wasn't taking very nice care of him at all. So I was just trying to, but I know that he was the best friend of Krishna and the shelter that he had from Krishna and him always believing that Krishna would provide. I was just trying to find a correlation between him not being taken care of by the government. But I know that the Krishna factor is winning, but just the factor that he wasn't taken care of by the government and why that was.
Well, thank you for the question. I would say that Krishna was the king of Dwaraka, and Sudama, he lived within the jurisdiction of Dwaraka, though he was in a village far away from Dwaraka, but he was close to Dwaraka. And so, as a very exalted devotee, he was satisfied with his very poor circumstances, his impoverished situation. He was satisfied with it. But his wife kept pestering him that, see, you say that Krishna was your classmate. You say Krishna was your intimate friend. You tell me how you and Krishna were together in Gurukul. Now Krishna is king of Dwaraka. He is married 16,108 queens. He has 16,108 palaces. Dwaraka is flourishing like anything. Everybody is glorifying Dwaraka. Why do you continue to live in this impoverished situation? Why don't you go and see your friend? So, in fact, it is said that Sudama was not attracted to going to ask anything from Krishna. He was not. But he thought, well, if I go to Dwaraka, I will have a glimpse of my friend. If I go to Dwaraka, I will gain the association of my friend. If I go to Dwaraka, at least I can see my old friend again. So Sudama's visit to Dwaraka was not to ask Krishna for anything, even though the wife had asked him to do that. He did not go to Dwaraka to ask for anything. But Krishna, being the super soul, he understood that Sudama's wife wanted some benediction, wanted some blessing, wanted some boon from him. And so even though Sudama did not ask for anything, but Krishna gave. Of course, the wife, Sudama said, I cannot go and see Krishna without some gift. So I have to go with some gifts. And the wife gave him that cheap rice. So after Krishna had received Sudama very nicely, washed his feet, took good nice care of him, seated him very nicely on his own bedstead, and he asked Sudama, what have you brought for me? And it was then he remembered that there was some cheap rice tied in the corner of his dhoti. And he brought it out and then said, oh, yes, I forget, I brought this for you. And Krishna immediately grabbed that cheap rice, threw it into his mouth and began to chew. He went for a second one. And the third one, Rukmini said, my dear Lord, please, this is enough. Please don't go for the third time. So Sudama didn't ask the Lord for anything. He only wanted to take association. He wanted to see his friend. But because the wife wanted some benedictions, and Krishna understood, he gave those benedictions. And that is why Sudama was rather surprised. When he went back to his village had turned into a beautiful city because Krishna had changed the whole environment. So Sudama did not actually request for anything from the Lord, but the Lord, being the well-wisher of the living entity, Surhirinda Sarva Dehinam, he understood what was happening in Sudama's home, and therefore he immediately converted Sudama's cottage, dilapidated cottage, into a beautiful city. So that was Krishna's benediction, because the wife of Sudama wanted such opulence. Krishna gave that opulence to Sudama. But Sudama, even though in that opulence, he was still living a very simple life. He still saw himself as a devotee of Krishna. And so he was not carried away by the opulence that Krishna had given him. He was still living his normal life as a devotee of Krishna, even though he had gained such great opulence. So the devotees, advanced devotees, it doesn't matter whether they're in a poverty-stricken situation or they're surrounded by opulence. Their consciousness is fixed on Krishna. Like we hear of Pundarik Vidyanidhi. Pundarik Vidyanidhi was a very opulent personality. He used to dress in opulent silk dhotis. He used to use opulent, very strong perfumed oils. He used to rub his hair in certain oils. He would wear many bangles and many necklaces. He was chewing pan. And so these are the external symptoms that Pundarik Vidyanidhi displayed. So one day Mukunda said, Tadadara, accompany me. I want to go and show you a very exalted Vaishnava. So Gadavara was eager to go and meet such an exalted Vaishnava. But when he came into the presence of Pundarik Vidyanidhi and saw his external display of wealth, Gadadara was a renunciate. He immediately rejected Pundarik Vidyanidhi in his mind. And Mukunda understood Gadadara mindset. So he began to recite a verse from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. And when Pundarik Vidyanidhi heard that verse, immediately he lost external consciousness. He started removing his hair, tearing his clothes, tearing his body in ecstasy. And Gadadara understood that what I'm seeing is just external. Pundarik Vidyanidhi is a great devotee. He's an exalted personality. And so to nullify the offense of thinking of him as a materialist, he had to take initiation from Pundarik Vidyanidhi. So, of course, he said that Pundarik Vidyanidhi was Vrishabhanu in his previous life, and Gadadara Pandit was Srimati Radharani, or a shadow of Srimati Radharani. So, again, they've come together as father and daughter. I don't know whether I've answered your question.
Yes, you answered it very nicely. I was just thinking, like, I remember that story about Pundarik Vidyanidhi, and also, like, I believe Sridhar was also Sudama Vipra in his past life.
Exactly. Yes, he was. He was. Yes.
Thank you so much. Hare
Hare.
Krishna.
Right, thank you. My regards to your mother.
Thank you. I will let her know.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. So,
Hare Krishna.
Pundarika Vidyanidhi typifies the saying that looks can be deceiving.
Deceptive, yes.
Yes, so we have to be careful.
You have to be careful.
Harichakra Prabhu, please unmute.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Chakra Prabhu.
Dandava Pranam, Prabhu.
All glories to Guru Deva.
All glories to you. All glories to Guru Deva.
All glories to our
Prabhupada.
wonderful devotees in Gitanagri. I don't know when we can see Gitanagri again.
Yeah, my question is in twofold. One,
Okay.
the first one is during your lecture, you mentioned how Mother Bhumi had to approach Lord Brahma, and they all approach Lord Vishnu.
Shuddhakashaya Vishnu, yeah.
Yeah, you said Shuddhakashaya Vishnu. So that's where my confusion is. Because do I understand that the Shuddhakashaya Vishnu is actually the super soul? And
yes, he is a super soul, that's true. But he also has his own planet in the universe.
Oh, okay. So it's not the Gabo, it's not the Gabo Ocean that they went to. They
No.
didn't approach that. Okay.
No,
All right.
they went to Shuddhakashaya Vishnu. Shuddhakashaya Vishnu has his own planet. The middle ocean, which is within this universe, is where Shuddhakashaya Vishnu is. But he expands. Is that Shuddhakashaya Vishnu that expands as a super soul in the heart of all living entities, and is the one when the Lord is coming into this universe, he passes through that. And when there is a problem in the universe, Brahma also goes there to complain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All this time I was thinking they always approach the Gabo
Garbo.
Ocean to, yeah.
No.
Okay. And my second question is, we usually hear that we of Kali Yuga, we are irreligious, and so many things that is we keep hearing. Anybody who speaks the scripture talk about how unfortunate we are in Kali Yuga, and why we are not even inclined to worshiping the Lord. But if you critically analyze and look at things, you realize that in previous ages, like during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira, they say the king was so pious that because of the piety of the king, everything was in abundance. So automatically, whether you like it or not, you'll be inclined to like jeering towards serving the Lord, because everything is in abundance. You are not going through any hardship. When we hear about any king who ever appeared, like during the reign of Lord Ramachandra, his reign was so perfect that everything was in abundance in the kingdom. But here we are. We have leadership that are not doing that. And because of they are not doing that, things are like falling apart completely.
Yeah.
So why are we being blamed for for all these things? That if we don't have the proper leaders who should be in the position of able to attract the Lord's mercy and be able to attract the mercy of Mother Bhumi for abundance to come, and we the citizens, because we are lacking so much, and because of that we are not even getting inclined to worshiping the Lord. Why are we to be blamed so much?
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. It's because of ignorance, actually. It's because you and me are studying these sacred scriptures, like SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We can understand that actually the good fortune of the citizens also depends on the quality of the king. That is a fact. And we see that when the king is very, very pious, so many good things happen. Like we are just talking about Priyavrata Maharaj. Priyavrata Maharaj, he was such a great king that he could create a chariot equal in strength with the sun god. And even he could regulate the heat from his chariot. Unlike the sun god, he's just emitting his heat, whether it's summer, same amount of heat, and that's why we sweat. Whether it is winter, same amount of heat. When the cold is there, the heat is not enough, so we are feeling cold. But for Priyavrata Maharaj, when it is winter time, he would increase the heat from his chariot that you don't feel the effect of the winter. And when there is summertime, then he would decrease the heat from his chariot so that you don't feel the heat. You don't sweat. So we can see, and because he was such a great king, the Lord gave him so many years to rule this universe. So it's a fact that the quality of leadership matters. The quality of the ruler matters. If you have a good ruler, things will go well. If you don't have a good ruler, things will not go well. Especially if the ruler is a devotee. In fact, all the scriptures, we can see that the best rulers, King Parikshit, King Yudhishthira, King Ambarish, Sibi Maharaj, all of these, they're all great devotees of the Lord. Priyavrata, Dhruva Maharaj, you can see one after another, Prithu Maharaj, they are all devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if the king is devoted to the lotus feet of Mukunda, if he's connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then definitely things will be good for the citizens. But as we already know, in Kali Yuga, everything is deteriorating. The leadership is deteriorating. Everything is deteriorating. And so that is where we are. Things are not so wonderful as we would have expected, as that happened in other ages. So it is a fact that the kings are not spiritually inclined. They don't even know anything about the Supreme Lord, what to speak of rendering devotional service. Everything is just based on their material, political understanding, material knowledge without devotion. Then what do we expect? And even some citizens may be spiritually inclined, but if their head is not spiritually inclined to receive the mercy of the Supreme Lord, to be a conduit pipe from this, for the Supreme to intervene, then things will not go well. In fact, it is said that the king is called Naradev. Naradeva means a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king is actually, he represents the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The king is Krishna's representative. And that's why we see that Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita, the scriptures, to kings, because they have to rule according to his instructions. But in Kali Yuga, these things are not happening. That is the misfortune, that our kings in Kali Yuga are not interested in religion. They are not interested in philosophy. They are not interested in anything else. They are simply interested in power and wealth. And so that is the misery we have to experience. But generally, we blame everybody else. We blame the citizens. But actually, the blame should first go to the heads of states or the heads of the administration. But if the citizens are also pious, to some degree, they can also help out. But when the king is impious and the citizens are also impious, then there is chaos. Then there is more trouble. But at least if the citizens are very pious, probably they can get the mercy of the Lord. The Lord may have sympathy on the citizens, and then he can still do something for their benefit. But if both parties, the ruling class and the ruled, they are all impious, then what do you expect? So much trouble. So I don't know. This is what I have to offer. Whether it does it answer your question, or somebody else wants to contribute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Well, I think we will take these two questions if you still have time, and then we'll bring the class to a close.
Yeah.
I was hoping we wouldn't, but these are very important devotees. We want to hear from them. Srimad Prabhu, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat.
Glorious to Prabhupada and Gurudev. It's about, well, I'm a little bit intrigued about the importance of administration. In many ways, you explained to us about the importance of administration and about the pious kings, and even the fact that Krishna spoke this knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, to a king. And it used to be that in the past. So what is intriguing to me is whether the fact that we understand this, the importance of this, of administration, whether we're actually applying that. So many things. For instance, we find that different religious leaders in the past seem to know this also. I mean, Muhammad is credited to be the most successful prophet of this age because he gave a system whereby there are leaders and administration, etc., to govern the life of the of the followers. And we found that a little bit also in Vatican, in the Catholics, in the seminary, they teach administration because they know that the head of the diocese is in charge of the life of the people and etc. So administration is part, we see that playing a lot of roles in other religion. They kind of, give importance to that. The contrary is what I'm seeing in Krishna consciousness, even though we seem to know this, like you're saying, but it seems to be the contrary because our administration is not in the hands of kings. Our small, enclave of devotional communities, we're giving administration to sannyasis. We're giving renunciates role of administration. And I don't see how that tallies because it doesn't really seem to me like it's what the scripture is saying. So anyway, just an observation. And I just want to know, are we really practicing what the scripture says? Are we really, exemplifying the importance of administration and in helping to elevate the general populace? That's what I want you to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. I know you know the answer, but for the benefit of others. So what I would say is that, yeah, your observation is right, that because Srila Prabhupada had to start this movement in a very ad hoc manner, he had known people, train up people on the ground who were already administrators. So whoever joined Srila Prabhupada, he just tried to use anybody and everyone in trying to get a movement started. And he really succeeded because he was right there, and out of respect for him and with his guidance, he was able to even utilize people who had no knowledge of administration to do the job. Srila Prabhupada himself was an administrator because he was a businessman, and to do business means you must know administration. If you don't know administration, don't go into business. So Srila Prabhupada himself was a businessman, and so he knows administration. And so he was guiding his disciples what to do, and so on and so forth. So, and that's why Prabhupada, he was, from the beginning, he was insisting on starting a Varnashrama college. Some land was given to Prabhupada in Kurukshetra, and he ordered Ambarish to bring some money, $10,000, so that they will start this Varnashrama college, whereby devotees can be identified by their inclinations and be trained accordingly. Unfortunately, the land was taken away from Srila Prabhupada. And so that money, I think Prabhupada diverted that money to the temple building in Vrindavan, the Krishna Balaram temple building. And eventually that Varnashram college did not start. I even also heard that the Gitanagari community was also meant for that Varnashrama college. But in his last trip to America, when he wanted to go and establish that Varnashrama college, he ended up in England. His health did not allow him to go to America. His health deteriorated in England, so that he had to return to India. And that was his last travel before he departed from this world. So Prabhupada is aware that there is a need for training Kshatriyas, Brahmanas, Vaishyas, and of course, the service class. Prabhupada is aware of that. But somehow, because his life was short and he has to, get the preaching rolling. So he put more emphasis on getting the preaching going, spreading the movement to every continent, because his time was short. But on his agenda, he was also thinking about establishing a training program whereby devotees could be properly trained in the various fields so that they can run the administration of the society well. So those devotees who came early, most of them become sannyasis, and because they're the senior disciples, automatically the administration of the movement fell on their heads. So we can say by circumstance, it was circumstantial that these devotees had to run the administration. But when Srila Prabhupada left, we should have pursued that Vanashrama College very vigorously, get it established, and by now we would have students or graduates who have passed out from that college, and they would have been in positions to run the organization. But that did not happen also. And it was quite recently that they came up with this idea of strategic planning, and this strategic planning, they came out with different departments, and as a result, they established the GBC College. But even that GBC College is not meant for everybody. There are a certain class of leadership that you're allowed to go there. And even that is just a very brief course, 1 year course. Is not sufficient to actually give us a very, sound administrative training. So I understand His Holiness Bhakti Raghava Swami Maharaj is trying to establish Vanashram colleges across the world. He has already started some places, some schools somewhere in the world. I'm not too sure where exactly, but I heard he has started a Vanashrama College in India. And the goal of this Vanashrama College is actually to identify administrators, identify Kshatriyas, identify Vaishyas, identify the different classes of Varnas, and give them the right training so that in the future, we can actually have people who are qualified to do administration, who are qualified to run certain parts of the organization. So we are behind, but I can say there are plans. There are plans, and there is some action that is on the ground for training the different categories of Varnas for the society. So that is what I can say.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Praise. I believe this will be the last question, so we can let His Grace leave and take some break. Govinda Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Hare Krishna, SRIVAS Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Govinda Prabhu.
My respectful obeisances to you, and my
All glories
obeisances
to Gurudev, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to our wonderful devotees in Columbus.
Hare Krishna, all
Hare
glory to
Krishna.
wonderful devotees in Accra, Media,
Hare Krishna.
Yatraki, Jai.
Krishna, Ghana Yatra ki Jai, Columbus Yatra ki Jai, American Yatra ki Jai. So what is the news?
The news is I waited for your answer. You said you were going to send me the answer through WhatsApp. I didn't get it today, so I'm just reminding you.
All right.
And,
what was the question? What is the question? I remember I've not sent you the answer. Maybe I forgot the question. That's fine. I've not said the answer. So if you give me remind me of the question, I will send it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have a different question for you today.
Okay. All right.
It's concerning the same administration.
Okay.
I've been listening to your lecture today very very scrutinizedly, and my understanding, the understanding I'm getting from your speech about the administration is not only the administration is not only on the superficial platform, that one has to be educated and to know how to put things together. What I'm realizing from your explanation is that it's like one can have all good ingredients for preparing soup.
Yep.
And you can put all these ingredients together. But if you do, the person does not add salt,
There's no
even
taste.
though he has all the good ingredients together, but still he'll be lacking of something. Something
Yeah.
will be lacking. And so what I'm hearing from you is that the kings who were successful in the administration were taking very, very good care of their citizens.
Yeah.
So it's not that they were, constructing roads, they were, doing things that prove that he's taking care of the citizens, but they were also caring so much for the citizens.
Yeah.
That when Kali tried to kill somebody, Kali has to be punished. He has to be penalized for doing that.
Yeah.
So this is, and also Kinvena, when Kinvena was not doing well, the Brahmanes came together and also killed him. If the head of state is not acting according to the expectation, the citizens will push him out. If the father is not acting the way it's expected as a father to the children or to the family, the whole children will go against him.
Yeah.
The kings were caring for the citizens, so they were attracting the mercy of Krishna. And so that the rain was falling, the flowers were booming, the Mother Earth was producing fruits and vegetables, and everything was in place because Krishna was happy.
Exactly.
So what I'm deducing is that there has to be a devotion.
Yes.
And you rightly said that administration, when it is channeled, when it is performed with the understanding that this is the service given to me by Krishna, then it becomes a devotional service, and that spiritualizes one's administration.
Yeah.
So my question is, there are many temples in Africa, there are many temples elsewhere in the world that are suffering from sometimes even money to buy boga, even money to pay for other things. It's not there.
Yeah.
People are losing interest. People are going away from the society, and people don't want to join us. Can we attribute this to the fact that the leaders are not pious enough? They are not devotional enough. That's why we are not attracting the mercy of Krishna. And if that is the case, I would like you to advise us how best can we care for these devotees? Because it seems like they are very, very dear to Krishna. Not only devotees, the whole living entities are very, very dear to Krishna. So if the kings are taking care of the citizens, and Krishna is so pleased and devas are pleased and everything is falling and everything is moving so nicely. So we can see how dear the living entities are to Krishna, and if they are not treated well, then we face the wrath of Krishna. So I would like you to address this issue. How can we care for the devotees? Individually, even in our homes, as a Gihastra, how can we care for our wives, our children? How can we show them that devotion? How can we show that devotion to the people, that are working under us as temple presidents, so that we can win the blessings of Krishna, and be able to, satisfy the citizens and satisfy the Lord Himself.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Your question is very loaded.
That is Govinda for you.
We can't finish answering that question today. We'll do part and continue with the rest later.
I don't think you can even finish the lifetime with it.
It's a loaded question.
Do as much as you can.
I'll just do as much as I can for today.
Yeah.
We'll continue with it later.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes,
Hare
it's true.
Krishna.
It's true that everything depends on how we are able to attract Krishna's mercy. That is a fact. Because we can see, when Srila Prabhupada started this movement, there was no question of shortage. That we can all see. People were coming, people were joining, people were giving money, people were supporting. And because of that, he expanded and expanded and expanded. So, but today, the story is different. Yeah, it's different. There is shortage, there is problem. So what is the reason for this? The reason is we must admit the truth. There are some leaders, they don't know how to put things together. Some people are only interested in the position, but they're not interested in the service that goes along with the position. So definitely, they are not able to attract Krishna's mercy to do what is expected. So the advice would be that the leaders need to understand that our first duty is to, first of all, connect ourselves properly to Krishna. Our sadhanas must be strong. If the leader's sadhana is weak, then where is the connection? Yeah, so the leader, his sadhana must be strong, because he is connecting his dependence to Krishna. So his sadhana must be strong. Then he has to encourage other sadhana as well. And when everyone is trying their utmost best to please Krishna, Krishna will definitely reciprocate. Krishna will reciprocate. In fact, there is a story of Narasingha Mehta. Narasingha Mehta, I think about 200 or 300 years ago, he lived in Gujarat. He was a devotee, and his only business was just chant the holy names and preach. He has nothing else to do except just travel, preach, and spread the holy name. And he was absorbed 100% in that, to the degree that he was kind of neglecting his household duties. He had a marriageable daughter. And he was not even thinking about her. His whole mindset was on chanting the holy name, distributing holy name, engaging people in chanting the holy name. So at a point, the wife was so concerned that, look, our daughter is of marriageable age. If we don't get her married, something may happen and it will bring disgrace to us. And what is more, once a lady is up to the age of marriage, everybody sees that it's up to the age of marriage. And if you cannot arrange to get her married, then they speak ill about the family. So, my dear husband, it is our responsibility to make sure we find the right suitor for our daughter. And we know the Indian system of marriage, there is dowry involved. And it is the daughter of the father who gives the dowry, because he has to give the share of his property to the daughter when he's getting married. After the daughter is married, he's not entitled to anything else in the house. So at the time of marriage, the father has to share his wealth with his daughter in the form of a dowry, and that to assist the husband in their establishment. So money was required. And Narasimha Mehta had no money. He was absorbed in just distributing the holy name. So the wife said, all right, my dear husband, take my bangles. When I got married, my father gave me some golden bangles. Take them and go and sell and bring them so that we can organize a befitting dowry for our daughter and get him married. So the father took the bangles, put in his Sankirtan bag and left. For several months, he didn't come back. And he forgot to sell the bangles. He was so absorbed in his preaching that he forgot about the daughter's marriage. But what happened? Krishna was concerned about the daughter's marriage. So the wife was there one day. A gentleman arrived with everything that was needed for the marriage. Saris, boga, money, everything that was needed to make sure the girl was married was brought. And the fellow told the wife, your husband said he's busy preaching and he has sent me to bring this so that you can arrange the wedding of our daughter. So the wife was happy. He thought the husband had sold the bangles and bought the things and arranged all this. So he took it and they had a very beautiful wedding in the absence of the father. Then after some time, the father remembered he was looking into the bag and he saw the bangles in the bag. And he remembered that his wife will kill him when he goes back home. Because he had agreed to sell these things and bring the money home for the dowry of their daughter. But he was so absorbed in his preaching, in his ecstasy, he forgot. So he didn't know what to do. But he decided, anyway, what it is, let me go back home and see how I can pacify my wife and we can find some way of getting our daughter married. So as he was getting closer to the village, he started asking people, is there any news about my daughter? Is there anything happened about my daughter? And one person told him, oh, your daughter had the best wedding in this community. You have not heard? So he said, oh, my daughter is already married. How did it happen? He said, well, go and ask your wife. So he went home. The wife saw him coming. He was so happy. He ran and met his husband, embraced him, and thanked him for arranging for their wedding. For the child's wedding. And the man was surprised. Why I don't know about this. Why are you thanking me? Then the wife said, what are you saying? I was here when some young man came with a whole load of everything needed for the wedding. Saris, bangles, food, money, everything was brought. Now you send them. And now you are telling me they have no knowledge. What do you mean by that? And Narasimha Mehta understood that it was Krishna himself, seeing his absorption in his Sankirtan, in his chanting, in his devotion, and forgetting about his material needs. Krishna took that responsibility on his head and made sure everything was arranged nicely. So in fact, Narasimha Mehta began to cry. He said, my dear wife, you are more fortunate than me. Krishna came and spoke to you. Krishna came right in front of you. You had the opportunity to see the Supreme Lord yourself. Even me, who is chanting his names and preaching his glories, Krishna never appeared before me like this. You must be the most fortunate person. So all that I'm trying to say is that if we do our part, if we do what Krishna wants, Krishna lacks nothing. Krishna can provide whatever we need to maintain the citizens, our dependents, whatever we need, Krishna will provide. But most of the times, we forget the Krishna factor. We forget the Krishna factor, and we try to use our own intelligence. We want to use our own expertise. We want to use our own arrangement, and therefore, we are experiencing shortages because the Krishna factor is forgotten. So what I would say is that the leaders, we should be more Krishna conscious and encourage our dependents to be more Krishna conscious, because that's the only way we can attract Krishna's mercy. So if we are able to do that, I think things will change. In those temples where the leaders are Krishna conscious and they are encouraging everyone to become Krishna conscious, we can see that those temples, they don't lack anything. For instance, if you go to Radha Gopinath Temple, Chowpatty in India, they don't lack anything. If you go to their farm community, Govardhan Eco Village, they don't lack anything. There are examples like that because the leadership is very strong with their spiritual sadhana and making sure that everybody is practicing this sadhana and everybody is cooperating. Unlimited wealth is pouring there. So I will say that we as leaders, we have to intensify our practice and also encourage our dependents to intensify their practice. And when Krishna sees our effort, he will also come to our aid. I think this is the first part of your answer. The second part will come later. I think I'm asking Kavichara Maharaj's face. Is it Kavi Kanapur Prabhu or Maharaj's face I'm seeing?
Yeah, it's Maharaj's face, but that is Kavikanapur Prabhu.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Kavi Kanapur. So, Dr. Prabhu, have I tried answering your question? At least this part one, we will follow the part two later.
Thank you very much, SRIVAS Prabhu. Yes, very clear, and I'm waiting for the part two. So the key point here is that we should always try to remember Krishna's factor in our administration, and see the devotees as being sent to us by Krishna
to take care of them,
have them develop Krishna consciousness. And so much love should be given to devotees.
Yes.
And if you do that, then Krishna will come to our aid. Yes. Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Kavi Kanapur, I want to run away. So what is your
No, Maharaj. Maharaj, thank you very much for your wonderful answer. I don't want to delay you, but I just want to buttress your point.
Buttress the point. Yes, please. I love that.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Like you mentioned about the Krishna factor, you are right, Maharaj, because me also, after so much analyzing our complaint, and sometimes we talk about leadership. I remember very clearly when my Guru Maharaj always coming to Nigeria and the West Africa, I always say that in Nigeria, Africans, they have the highest, kind of, criticism in their newspaper. Everything is about criticizing this person, criticizing that person, and finding fault in this person. They say we're very good at this. They always mention this. And also after always thinking about this, we have a leadership syndrome problem, this. Then I look around in the nation also. Those people who are leading the nation, how perfect, how good are they in terms of leadership? So what I'm trying to bring out in the essence is that, like you said, that Krishna factor, the Krishna factor, like I remember when Prabhupada was going to America, he was praying, and we have all those lists of his prayers.
Yes.
To show that he was not depending on his skills, his expertise. He was praying and he was crying to Krishna that you make me dance. If these people, they are like this, they are like that, and if you wish, you can make me dance. So after listening to your lecture today, I see that we also individual, we have a lot to do on ourselves, and we just have to depend on Krishna. With all our expertise and knowledge, if we don't depend on Krishna, we will complain, and also we'll be demoralizing our own spiritual practice. So thank you very much, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Also got something from your side. Yes, we have to depend on Krishna. And the example you gave of Prabhupada, he prayed throughout the journey, and he prayed throughout his life. So the founder Acharya, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Krishna is a mystery. Krishna sent him down into this world. He was always praying. So why we are not praying? We think we are so powerful, more powerful than the founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada? No. So we should even pray more. We should pray. Krishna, this is what we want to do. Give your blessing. Give your empowerment. If you wish, we can do like this. If we wish, we can do like that. But we are thinking we are so brilliant, we are so expert, we are so smart that we can do things by our intelligence. We forget the Krishna factor. The Prabhupada is demonstrating in his what do you call it? Those is Markini prayers. Markini something prayers. The title of that prayer is very beautiful, and it reminds us that we must always be thinking of Krishna, praying to him and requesting his intervention. Then if Krishna pleases, if Krishna intervenes, nothing becomes impossible. So thank you for that. You've actually made my day by that contribution. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, His Grace Shivas Vanacharya. Since Kavi Kanapur has already made your day, I do not want to spoil somebody making your day, but I have a very, very different stance on what we're saying, because one, the Krishna factor must always be there. That is a must.
That's true.
It's always there. But when Srila Prabhupada made those prayers on his way to the US, he wasn't making such prayers for material things. He was making prayers how Krishna is going to help him give Krishna consciousness to these militias who know nothing about Krishna.
Yeah.
But we have many other religious organizations and even non-religious organizations who do not depend on God or do not have much devotion to God, yet they are materially prosperous. So just looking at the spiritual aspect alone may not be sufficient, because other places like you were referring to, like Chopati and things like that, there are able devotees who are materially equipped to work in the capacities they are working. So Srila Prabhupada says that one can liberate himself by using the mind. So if we are able to use our mind, whether materially, so-called material, but like you said in your lecture, if we utilize everything in the service of Krishna, then nothing is material. Exactly. But sometimes my understanding is sometimes we look up to philosophy alone, and we kind of shun material education, but Srila Prabhupada didn't do that. So I think that if the vote like I think Shima Bara Prabhu has also said it, and like you, Prabhu Shivas, you trained me. There are certain things I would go out, people will ask me, I didn't have answer, I didn't know. And as such, I wasn't able to distribute the book because I wasn't able to answer the person's question satisfactorily. So at that point, I may say that, well, Krishna didn't want the person to take the book. But when I came back to the temple, I asked you the same question and you gave me answer. When I went out the next following day and somebody asked me same or similar question, I was able to answer and the book was distributed. So that is also required. But yeah, thank you so much. At this point, okay, except you want to say something, otherwise we're going to end. We've been holding you for much longer than expected.
I think I understand your contribution. Both, you see, we need to use our brain.
Yeah.
We need to use whatever resources we have. And we also need Krishna's blessings, Krishna's intervention. All is required.
Yes.
Prabhupada had all. He was an excellent manager. He was a retired businessman, but he still depended on Krishna's mercy for the success. So we have to use our brain. We can't say, oh, Krishna is there, so I fold my hands and I sit. Nothing will happen. But we have to do the needful, and we also have to remember Krishna. Then everything falls in place, and then we can get some success. So thank you very much for that contribution. So on this note, I think—
Thank you so much. Yes. So at this point, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute, and then we chant the loudest Hare Krishna Mahamantra to express our appreciation for Prabhu's lecture. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.